Hi, I'm Jason Dragoo, and great to see you guys again. We've been talking about biologics for many years now, and excited about this symposium coming up here this morning. Just as a brief agenda, which is all in your handouts, we're going to talk a little bit about the speakers and introduce their background, followed by a little update with regards to the FDA, and then have a little pro and con approach to modern day biologics. And this, per the committee here, was purposefully pieced together by really being honest with you guys today. And I think if there's one objective, you would get the honest truth about where we're at in biologics as of 2022. And the speakers, of course, have been picked very purposely for that, and I'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about allograft biologics as well, a little future of the PRP, and also the use of biologics for tendon injuries, etc. So I wanted just to quickly introduce the speakers this morning. Unfortunately, half our panel has the, let's just call it the flu, COVID sort of bug. So Tom and I are the only ones here from this, but we have talks from Chris Rogers and Connie Chu that have been pre-recorded. Chris is an assistant professor at UCSD, and I think really one of the most important things about Chris and his background and his experience is that he serves as a medical director of one of the only companies that have FDA approvable products of basically taking cells from the operating room and dosing them. And so he has a very unique perspective. This is, of course, all FDA compliant, so it will be great to hear his perspective. The other perspective is that he is the co-founder of Data Biologics, which is a database system that can be used in any clinic, and it's oriented towards biologics. And there are a lot of things going on in the biologic world to increase our understanding of how biologics work and the reasons why they work for some folks and why they don't work in others. So these sort of database systems and biorepositories are going to be critical for the future. Tom here in the front row has been a colleague for many years. He's a professor at USC for 35 years. And let it just be said that he is an international expert at both stem cell medicine as well as exosomes. He's also the author of a new book, The New Science of Overcoming Arthritis, and you can see his perspective through the years of studying science here for so long. I wanted to also share with you maybe the international perspective of Tom. You know, Tom is a coveted speaker internationally because he is a straight shooter. He's not going to sugarcoat anyone, and whatever Tom says, you can bank on it being the truth. And again, that is the reason we have put together this panel here today. And Tom, it's great to have you with us. Connie Chu also has the flu bug, but is a professor and vice chair of research at Stanford. She's the director of the Joint Preservation Program there, and so certainly has, again, this very scientific approach to biologics. She's also the chair of AOSSM Research Council as well, so very much into the research and application of biologics as a whole. Well, let's switch gears now into an update on FDA regulation of biologics. There's lots to say, but I only wanted to stick to the real important principles that affects all of us in our practices. And this, of course, includes our websites. Back in 2017, there was this FDA paper that came out which showed non-binding recommendations and future thoughts about how the FDA was going to regulate this space of biologics. Back in June of 2021, all of the previous thoughts that were made became the rule, or now are enforceable. And so now it is no longer legal to sell the following products or to market them and to use them outside of a formal study. Now, this includes stem cells. We're going to talk a ton this morning about cell medicine, but you see where the FDA is going. They needed to rein in this whole thing because what we're going to talk about this morning aren't stem cells, but they're cellular medicine or progenitor cells. So we have to just clean up our lingo a little bit. And so cellular medicine, yes, it's okay, and the marketing of stem cells is not okay. Stromal fraction, that's enzymatic digestion of the adipose tissue. That is not okay. The birth products, umbilical cord, blood, amniotic fluid, Horton's jelly, amniotic tissue, no longer on the market. Exosomes, we're going to talk about today, no longer on the market, but I'll be the first to say out of this symposium that they'll be back. They're undergoing a change in the regulation, and so therefore they have to go back to do some additional FDA hurdles of safety before they're reintroduced into the market. And I think a lot of us in academic biologics will say this is nothing but a positive thing, because there was so many, let's call it iffy products that really had a high level of contamination are no longer going to be on the market. But those good ones, and that involves the amniotic fluid and the amniotic tissue, that's going to involve exosomes, are going to be back in the market. They're just going to have to be regulated in a different way. It is no longer legal to market regenerative cures for things. I have a cure for osteoarthritis, a torn ACL, we can cure it without surgery. All of those are now illegal. And it's important for us to police our own websites, right? And our own marketing materials for our practices. And if this applies to anyone, it's a perfect time to make those changes to the website just to make sure you're in compliance and not otherwise going to be a target for a letter from the FDA. If anyone is curious why the FDA is doing it, is because of what we see. And to be honest with you, California seems to be a little less of this in comparison to some of the other states. Wow, well, this is really in your face driving down the freeway. But we know it still happens here, right? And these are all of these clinics making these egregious claims, right? And that's what the FDA doesn't want. They want the science, they want the conversation and the continued use of this next chapter in medicine, but they don't want the problems and the misuse of these terms within these rogue stem cell clinics. I want to play this video, and those on the flight deck over there, this is the one to turn up the volume for it. I'm going to play it. This is part of an undercover investigation that I was part of. This was actually in Chicago, where the media was beginning to look into these rogue clinics and what they're really saying. And many times it doesn't touch us as surgeons, but our patients hear about it. So I wanted to give you a glimpse of what they're hearing on the streets, and this again gives more of the reasoning why the FDA are doing what they are doing. So here goes.
Will go in and regenerate that tissue that you're missing. So you can get new cartilage, you can get new knees, you can get new shoulders, new nerve.
Describing how stem cells repaired her injured right ankle.
I can jump up and down, and on an x-ray, I have an ankle joint again on the right-hand side where before I didn't have one.
If you've had type 2 diabetes, it can regenerate your pancreas.
We just had a woman who has epilepsy, and we injected the nose area with some stem cells, and they went directly into her brain.
I'm told that there's no proof that stem cells, as you are suggesting, actually work as you describe.
So who said that? You're an orthopedic? Orthopedic. Right. You got to consider the source.
Yeah, you can't make this up, can you? Yeah. But you see from the perspective of this that the orthopedic surgeons, right, we have many arrows in our quiver. We're a respected source. So if we're going to practice biologics, we should be the ones that are educated about it and responsible for its use. The question really in all of our minds is how are we going to stay out of trouble with the FDA with the use of biologics? And the answer really is to use FDA Approved Products, but understand that the FDA doesn't have any jurisdiction on physician practice. Everyone by license, mostly here in the state of California, you are obligated to take care of your patients, and you can use whatever means that you feel is appropriate as their physician to treat them. But we have to make sure that we use FDA products when they are available. And there's many FDA approved products. I'm talking the PRPs and the bone marrow concentration kits and the adipose preparation sorts of processes. There's many things that can be used. And so therefore, when the new companies come into the office and say, hey, sure, I'd love to consider using your product, but ask for the FDA approval number. And that way everyone can stay above board. And it's a good way going forward in biologics. So that was the end here of the first talk.